Joining us now, Steve Bannon. Now, this is the Steve Bannon. He was the chairman of the Trump for President campaign. He was the former chairman of Breitbart News. He was the one that engineered the improbable fall victory. He's also was interviewed about a month ago, I think, by the Daily Intelligencer, which I've just tweeted out again. This is the best interview done on Trump voters and why Trump won. And I got to tell you, I printed it out when it first came out because I live that. I am the person, my wife and I, are what Steve is talking about. And I read that once a week. I read it every single week just to remember why we're all doing this. It was the best article ever written. Stephen K. Bannon understands the Trump voters better than anyone in America. And now he has just launched a 25-person pro-Trump rapid response and polling operation that is framing the midterms as an up or down vote on the president's agenda. And it's called Citizens for the American Republic. Joining us now, Steve Bannon. Steve, great to have you.
Hey, John, I'm honored to be on the show. As you know, I'm a Richmond boy, so it's very close to my heart to be on your show since you're such a big draw in my hometown.
I know, and not only that, but you went to Virginia Tech in Blacksburg, and I was just there with my son last weekend. He's a high school pitcher, and they had a tournament at Virginia Tech, so we got to play on the big field. It was a lot of fun. But, Steve, I got to get back to this interview that you had where you defined why Trump won and the Trump voters, and you related it back to the financial crisis of 2008. Can you just elaborate on that, and then we can get into the other issues?
It all starts with that, this populist revolt, the explosion that was Donald Trump in the fall of 2016, and then his presidency, all is predicated upon the financial collapse of 2008. And it's very simple. The elites in this country, Republicans and Democrats, Wall Street and corporate America, brought that on, right? And in that collapse, they got a compliant Congress and administration of both Bush and Obama to bail them out. I mean, the simple fact is that the balance sheet of the Federal Reserve is about $880 billion on the day of the financial crisis in September of 2008. The balance sheet of the Federal Reserve the day that Donald Trump raised his hand and took the oath of office was $4.5 trillion. Now, what that means in your life is that the Fed just created money to bail out asset owners, real estate, guys who own stocks, the hedge funds and intellectual property. And the working people in this country paid the taxes. That's why it's been flat. It's very simple. This populist nationalist revolt was driven by a financial crisis brought on by the elites in which they bailed themselves out, and the taxpayer, the little guy, the deplorables, paid the burden. So I think that's why you still see this anger, and that's why your introduction to this segment was, I think, stunning. It sums up basically what has to happen. This is a re-elect of President Trump. Forget about 2020. In 4 weeks, you're having the first re-elect of Donald Trump. The entire program is on the table. And if people saw last week in the Kavanaugh hearings exactly how the Democrats are going to roll, they don't want to talk about impeachment. They don't want to talk about investigations. But if you look at the New York Times today, which is the Pravda of the Democratic Party, they've got like a 10-page analysis on President Trump's taxes. They intend, if they win this and take the House, and I think Jerry Nadler said the other day, 52 investigations of the Trump administration. They are going to bring the entire Trump program to a screeching halt. And this is going to be just a civil war between two parties. That's why it's imperative, John. And one of the problems we've got in this race is that the deplorables and the hobbits and all the great Trump supporters are a little bit leaning on their shovels. This is the passion of 2010, that great Tea Party victory that came off the first year of the financial collapse. That energy that won, 62 or 63 seats in the House with literally no money. The passion's now on the left. They're the ones ringing doorbells. They're the ones in your neighborhoods knocking on doors. And we've got 4 weeks to get focused on this. The president is very focused. You hear every campaign stop. He's talking about impeachment. He's talking about they're trying to stop his program. And people should look at the Kavanaugh hearings of last week. That is what 2019 and 2020 are going to be like unless we win. And this is very winnable. And in fact, there's districts in Virginia that are going to determine this. the Goodland District up in Shenandoah Valley, Dave Brad in Richmond, Taylor in Virginia Beach. It's all on the line, and these House seats are absolutely imperative. And people, I got to tell you, people are going to have to go, and you're going to have to ring doorbells for rhinos. You're going to have to ring doorbells for maybe a congressman you're not in love with, because it doesn't make a difference. He's not a vote for Nancy Pelosi. He is a vote for Donald Trump. And so the deplorables, the hobbits, the Trump base, the Reagan Democrats that voted for Trump are going to have to get out. They're going to have to walk neighborhoods. They're going to have to do phone banks. In this last 4 weeks, they're basically going to have to put their shoulder to the wheel to push President Trump and his agenda over the top. This is a nationalized election. This is not about individual congressmen. And I just, beseech everybody in your listening audience to basically listen to your introduction, because you summed it up, I think, even better than I did.
Stephen Bannon, let me ask you this. If the Kavanaugh nomination goes down, and it looks like there's going to be a vote on Saturday, assuming there's no new allegations or no corroborative evidence in the FBI investigation, if that goes down, what happens then? I mean, how do you get people out?
We lose. It's very simple. It's Kavanaugh, by the way. There's the gutless Republicans in the Senate led by Jeff Flake. And you see what this Trump revolt's all about. That's what President Trump was left with. A gutless coward that gets cornered by two women who are kind of associated with Soros's NGO somehow, or not-for-profit somehow. He gets cornered, and he shifts his vote. This vote should have taken place last week. Jeff Flake, who is a complete gutless coward and one of the heads of the Never Trump movement. If we lose this vote, I think it's very simple. I think you lose the Senate. I think you lose the House. I think the enthusiasm of people are saying, what are we doing here? This vote is incredibly important, and I'm no fan of Mitch McConnell, but I think Senator McConnell, I hope's got it wired. And I think some red state Democrats like Manchin and some others are actually going to throw in here and understand that I think if Manchin votes against this, I think he loses West Virginia. I think Morrissey wins. So the Kavanaugh vote could not be bigger. And it's even be made even bigger because of Jeff Flake's complete screw up last week. But this is all on the line, and I tell you, if we lose this, I think that the momentum will be on their side. I do believe if we win this vote and the deplorables get out there, I think it breaks the momentum. People have to understand strategically how important this victory is in November. If we stop the blue wall in the House, if we stop the blue tsunami, they have never held Hillary Clinton and the junta that controls the Democratic Party to account. If the far left, the Democratic Socialists, the Bernie Sanders and AOC and these other people, if all the work they've done, because they're the ones that have been out in the walking precincts, if we stop the blue wave and hold the House, they're going to have an internecine civil war in the Democratic Party that I think will open up a possibility of a major landslide for President Trump in 2020. That's why this election is so important. We must stop this now. And I got to tell you, people should start focusing on the radicalism of what's come up in the Democratic Party. The resistance has definitely taken the Democratic Party far left. It's like Jeremy Corbyn, the Labour Party almost in England. This is not your parents' Democratic Party. I know a lot of people listen to you, John. We're Reagan Democrats. My family was a working class Democratic family out of Richmond, and there's a lot of Democrats, a lot of working class Democrats in Virginia that listen to you. This is not your father's Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is now a party that's been radicalized. And that's why I think this election, particularly in the House, is so important. The Kavanaugh vote is, to me, all the chips are on the table.
Stephen K. Bannon, we're with Steve Bannon. He was the former chairman of the President Trump general election campaign. He was the person that engineered the victory without a doubt, along with his campaign manager, Kellyanne Conway. And Steve he's in charge of a new political action committee that he started called the Citizens for the American Republic. This is an outside political group. He was also former White House chief strategist. Let me ask you this. You were there as chief strategist in the West Wing. Peter Navarro was there. There was a time where, as you know, I'm a protectionist, so I come from your angle here. I couldn't stand TPP and NAFTA and all these terrible trade deals, so I'm a protectionist. That's where I start in the argument. But when Navarro was there and you were there, after you departed, we were petrified that the globalists were going to win out. Gary Cohn, Stephen Hushin, whatever. Now we find out in one of the new books that came out that they were taking trade papers off his desk. And then on Wednesday in Manhattan during the UN, the president had a press conference. I was there, and he said, this was Wednesday. He said, I'm done negotiating with Trudeau in Canada. I can't stand the way they're negotiating. They're not being honest. They're out. I told my people not to work with them. How did Navarro's team win out?
Well, I think number one is President Trump. This is, President Trump. I haven't read the book Fear, but I understand it starts with a segment about Dave Bossie and I seen the then Donald Trump in 2010. The one thing he talks about is China. I mean, this NAFTA deal over the weekend, people have to understand that he is reorienting the world's supply chain and the manufacturing base of the industrial democracies. Canada, Mexico, the United States, in the North American continent, also Japan, and then the EU. He's shifting that away from China. China's been engaged in direct economic war with the United States for about 25 years, and our elites have exacerbated that. They've gone along with that and supported that. Goldman Sachs, the Wall Street investment banks are the investor relations department of a totalitarian, murderous Chinese regime, okay? And corporate America is the lobbyist. And Donald Trump broke that single-handedly. The reason Navarro and Bob Lighthizer are two American heroes and will go down in history as great patriots against overwhelming odds in a White House that the knives are out about this trade, fighting globalists every day to support President Trump. But I got to tell you, this situation on China and every trade deal that you see is part of it. And it's just not about tariffs. I'm a protectionist, too, with you, John, but it's deeper than that. These tariffs really talk to bringing high value-added manufacturing jobs back from Asia. This is the way we end the opioid crisis. There's a direct correlation. The studies from MIT and Harvard show that there's direct correlation between the factories that left, the jobs that left with them, and the opioid addiction crisis, because people, working-class people, men and women, have no more pride, have no more dignity, have no more self-worth. Okay, and that is what Donald Trump is doing. Donald Trump is a transformative president, a historical president. The left gets this. They understand this. That's why they're walking districts in Iowa in July. They understand that Donald Trump's going to be in their life 30 years from now, not just with federal judges, but with the fundamental changes he's making to American society, and that's why they hate him. I understand why they hate him. He is making fundamental changes to make America great again, and it's driving them crazy, from Wall Street, from all the corporatists, from the big mainstream media, and then from the Soros-backed Democratic apparatus and activists. They're out to get Trump, and that's why you see people like, and I recommend, I haven't read the book, but I hear the segments about Navarro and Lighthizer are heroic in this book, Fear. I mean, Donald Trump's a hero. He took on basically half of his administration, who are globalists. And he basically said, this is what we're going to do. And I think you see this NAFTA deal, which everybody said would never happen. He pulled it off, and the key to the NAFTA deal is China. He's going to stop China from gaming the system through Mexico. He's going to bring manufacturing jobs back, and that's why our economy is doing so well. That's why black unemployment's at an all-time low, Hispanic unemployment 25-year low. These are the direct consequences of the policies and actions of Donald Trump, and so that's why I'm so proud of what he's doing and kind of fighting. That's why I made this film, Trump at War, because he's literally at war, not with just the Chinese, but with the global elites.
So if you want to see the film, Steve, that you made, Trump at War, where do you go?
Well, you can go online. Just go to Citizens of the American Public. Just Google Trump at War. One American Network has shown it, I think, 5 times. They're going to show it more times. We're going to put it up on other networks. It's totally free. It's just like when I made Clinton Cash. We want everybody to see this. We want 10 or 15 million people to download this. If you see this film, you will want to go out and ring a doorbell and support Donald Trump, because don't let anybody tell you this is just about a local issue. This is a nationalized election. The Democratic left are trying to stop the entire Trump program, all of it, in its totality. And this is the last thing I like to say, John, is people have to separate out the signal from the noise. The signal of Donald Trump could not be stronger, and that is to return America to her former greatness, to make us the economic power, manufacturing power, national security that takes the national interest of the United States in mind when we commit our troops and commit our resources throughout the world. And it's to bring law and order to the United States. And this is what Trump's trying to start to deconstruct, this massive bureaucracy in Washington, D.C. That's the Trump program, and that's why the opposition is out to destroy him. And so I think it's a pretty binary choice. If you like what Trump's doing, and forget all the noise. Every day
Right.
there's going to be other noise. There's going to be flashbang grenades by the mainstream media. Just forget all that. That's all noise, and it's going to be forgotten in history. The important things of history: deconstructing the administrative state, winning the economic war with China, bringing back the manufacturing base of the United States, getting our workers back employed in high-value jobs. That's the Trump program. And if you like that, you like the economy, then go to the polls and bring some friends, because it's going to be tight. And things like Dave Brad and these congressional districts in Virginia, I think right now are going to go down to the wire. And so every single vote counts.
Just in Virginia alone, there's 3 very competitive races. District 7, Dave, who you just mentioned. District 2, Scott Taylor. District 10, Barbara Cox, predicting against all odds is going to win that. Stephen K. Bannon with us, the former White House chief strategist. Steve, I got a couple more minutes. Tell us about your new political action committee, Citizens for the American Republic. How big is it? What is it involved in, as we have now, 33 remaining days to the midterms?
I started C4, and it's basically to do 3 things: to generate ideas, to kind of be a think tank, to put some flesh on the bones of this populist movement, to really start to think through tax plan and think through national security. Right now, we don't have a real think tank that generates ideas. So number 1 is to generate ideas. Number 2, it's communications. Right now, we have a 25-person war room where we do rapid response all day long. We're pulling what's being said about the president, being said about his policies and programs. We have people we write talking points for. We see people like Steve Cortez up on CNN. He's one of the people that works with us. We give him talking points and analysis for people you see on cable TV all day long, particularly people that go on CNN and MSNBC. In addition, we book people on talk radio all day long and have them writing op-eds. So we have a booking department, a research department, a polling department. We just did a massive national poll that was exclusive on The Hill, the newspaper, yesterday, with Niall Stavang, wrote it up with Pat Goodell and John McLaughlin, where we really went and looked at the big themes that are driving this. And what our polling shows that President Trump, going back to the hardcore issues that won in 2016, is a path to victory, particularly things on like immigration, the economy, and national security. And so, we're doing polling, we're doing a war room, we're doing rapid response, we're doing ideas. The last thing we do is to be a convening authority for grassroots groups. I came out of the Tea Party movement, and I'm a huge believer in grassroots, huge believer in the deplorables. And so this film, Trump at War, what we're doing is going around the country, having rallies, just exciting people, the basic common citizens in this country. The deplorables are the backbone of our country, the backbone of this republic. And in this C4 is really kind of a place that you can go and get news and information about the populist movement and see films, etc. So I couldn't be more excited. It's something I've wanted to do for a long time, and it's kind of where my life is focused right now.
All right, we're excited about it. Now, you can get more information on Steve Bannon's Political Action Committee, citizensfortheamericanrepublic.org, citizensfortheamericanrepublic.org, and I will soon tweet out a link that you will have momentarily on the new film, Trump at War. Steve Bannon, I really appreciate your being with us. I've only got one more minute. I've got to ask you this question. How did all of the never-Trumpers running around the Republican National Committee, people that hated Trump from the very beginning, how did they all end up in that West Wing? How the hell did that happen, Steve?
It's an interesting thing. We had to look. You got when you win at 2:00 in the morning, you come back in on the 9th, and you've got 8-10 weeks to relieve the watch. They tell you have 4,000 billets you have to fill, 1,000 Senate confirmations. And President Trump, and look, we didn't have a deep bench, as you know, John. You were one of the guys that was closest to us on the radio and on the campaign. It was a very thinly staffed campaign. Remember, I'd never been in a campaign office. I think at the time, President Trump tried to make accommodations with the Republican establishment and others to try to pull together. He's a leader. I mean, Trump reached out to people, even never-Trumpers, and hoped things would pull off. And I think some of them worked out, and a lot of them didn't. And particularly, I have a less problem with the never-Trumpers than the progressive Democrats that were brought in that clearly fought his program. These globalists fought his program. But Trump kind of won out in the end. So we are where we are, and he's very focused. I think we're in good stead. And, John, one last thing before we jump. I just want to say how much I appreciate your show and how much understanding of this, not just the Trump movement, but the Trump voter. The Trump voter is basically the working men and women of this country. It's the backbone of American society. and we have very few outlets that really get news and information out to them. So I'm so proud of the fact that you're in Virginia and getting out to the good folks of the Commonwealth, because Virginia is not only my home state, but I think the best state in the entire union.
And you're a Hokie. It just can't get any better than that, Stephen K. Bannon.
and I'm a Hokie.
And you're a Hokie. All right, I want to thank Steve Bannon for being with us, Steve.